we ended up forming the NVIDIA office here. Because of the war in Ukraine, many of our Russian employees started showing up in Armenia, and that created the opportunity for us to help them by creating an office and an entity here. And it created the opportunity for me to finally have an office.
For example, ChatGPT runs on the factory like we are building here.
It's interesting. So future economy's bottleneck will be energy and computing power, not people.
Said years ago, we understood that the most important, the most profound, the most impactful force in technology, in computer science, is going to be AI. And the basic instrument of AI is a supercomputer.
In the region, not only in Armenia, there is no knowledge of building such data centers like B200, which is the latest chips that NVIDIA announced, and it will be GB300 next year.
We should open an office in Armenia, and he's asking why, and you are asking, they have a good food. Բարև ձեզ։ Այսօր մեր ոդկասթի հյուրերն են NVIDIA ընկերության փոխնախագահ Րև Լիբարիդյանը եւ Team ընկերությունների խմբի համահիմնադիր Ալեքսանդր Եսայանը։ Ոդկասթը ձայնագրվել է անգլերենով եւ թողել ենք օրիգինալ լեզուն, բայց կդնենք հայերեն սուբտիտրեր։ Խոսել ենք վերջի մի քանի օրվա ամենամեծ նորություններից մեկի, թե ինչպես են Հայաստանում շուտով բացվելու $500 միլիոն արժողությամբ AI տվյալային կենտրոն։ Ոնց որ Ռևն է ասում, AI գործարան, թե ինչ ինդիկատիվ ունի այդ ամեն ինչ ասելով, շատ հետաքրքիր ձևով բացատրել է ոդկասթի ընթացքում։ Խոսել ենք նոր տեխնոլոգիաների, AI-ի, թե ինչ էֆեկտ կունենա այս ներդրումը Հայաստանի, տնտեսական, կրթական եւ անգամ անվտանգային առումով։ Հենց որ ոդկասթը լսեք, շատ հետաքրքիր է, լայքեք այս վիդեոն, բաժանորդագրվեք մեր ալիքին եւ եթե հավանում եք այն ինչ որ մենք անում ենք, մեր ոդկասթին ֆինանսապես կարող եք աջակցել Patreon-ի միջոցով։ Շատ շնորհակալություն բոլոր մարդկանց, ովքեր դա արդեն անում են։ Իսկ մենք ունենք նոր գործընկեր, Amundi Agba Asset Management։ Amundi-ն Եվրոպայի առաջատար ակտիվների կառավարիչն է, 2.25 տրիլիոն եվրո կառավարման ներքո ակտիվներով, ավելի քան 100 միլիոն հաճախորդ 35 երկրում։ Իսկ Հայաստանում 3 պարտադիր կൂട്ടակային կենսաթոշակային ֆոնդ, որոնց մասին ավելի մանրամասը կպատմեմ մեր հաջորդ էպիզոդներում։ Գնացինք։ How are you guys?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
Pretty happy.
Same here. We are excited.
Yeah, probably you are because you did something that probably was unimaginable like a year ago or maybe 2 years ago. How you were able to accomplish it?
Well, primarily I'm just happy because I'm in Armenia and I'm being fed well.
Yeah.
Eating good food.
That's something you cannot complain about.
Yeah.
Second, it's because of this great thing that we announced and we're getting very close to actually having realized in the country, which is the AI supercomputer, the AI factory under Firebird.
And can you please give me a little bit background how this all came through, how you started to work on this project and why Armenia?
Yeah, if you have some time, I can tell you a long story.
And, we don't have any time limits in this podcast.
Personally, the story starts for me about 20 years ago. I'm Armenian, but I was born in Los Angeles. And it wasn't until 20 years ago that I actually came to Armenia. I came here in 2005. I at the time was living in Moscow in Russia. I lived there for 4 years building the office for NVIDIA, which I believe your audience members should know NVIDIA, the company by this point in time. Back then, most people didn't know who we were.
The gamers knew.
Yeah, gamers knew, definitely. So, and I started visiting Armenia a lot when I was there. My father was living here. He had moved here, and so had my uncle was here, and many other family members are coming. but I started coming as well. And I dreamt about doing what I did in Moscow, doing it here in Armenia, opening an office for NVIDIA in Armenia. But honestly, it wasn't ready. Armenia in 2005 and at that time was not, in terms of technology, in terms of computer science, and in terms of the mentality for doing business in tech, it wasn't quite there yet. But I waited. And so I kept coming and kept waiting for the right moment. Around 2016, I started feeling there was a change. Something fundamentally was different with all the people I was talking to. There was a younger generation that was entering the workforce, and their mentality had shifted from more like the Soviet mentality that was there to a more modern, global kind of thinking as far as business. And I think part of that might have been because around that time we had the first alumni from TUMO who were inside the workforce. I think that I was starting to see the effects of that. And so I started thinking, okay, maybe it's time. Because since I opened the office in Moscow, I'd also opened our office in Zurich, in Toronto, in other parts of the US like St. Louis, even New Zealand more recently. But I kept dreaming about having one in Armenia, and I'm like, maybe now the timing is right. And I was waiting for the right moment. I kept telling my boss, Jensen Wang, who's our CEO, about Armenia. I took him to an Armenian restaurant when we were in LA. He loves food. Just like trying to set the stage so that maybe when the time comes that he'll let me open an office here.
I imagine how was that like. We should open an office in Armenia, and he's asking why, and you are asking they have a good food.
Well, I didn't think that tactic would work. But if he knew about Armenia and the timing was right, then I thought there would be more of a chance that we could do it. Obviously, we're not going to open an office just because I like it, but there should be a good reason for NVIDIA to do it. But we need to make that connection happen.
Մեր ոդկասթի գործընկերի տար Սոլարը ունի նոր ուղղություն։ Բացի արևային կայանների տեղադրումից, ընկերությունը զբաղվում է նաև տանիքների լիարժեք փոխարինմամբ եւ վերանորոգմամբ։ Առավելությունը նրանում է, որ այստեղ գործը վստահում է պրոֆեսիոնալների, գործում են ապառիքի արտոնյալ պայմաններ եւ այս ծառայությունը հասանելի է բոլորին։ Մի կարևոր փաստ եւս, եթե պատվիրում ես տանիքի փոխարինման ծառայություն եւ արևային կայան, ապա այս պարագայում նաև ստանում ես հատուկ գին։ Հեռախոսահամարը նույնն է 8128։
So, fast forward a few years later, we had the revolution here. And just like a few months afterwards, in December of 2018, because I'm on the technical advisory board of TUMO, Mary Lou and Pegor, who lead TUMO, they asked me to come along with a few of the other technical advisors and the TUMO board to come meet with the Prime Minister, the new Prime Minister Pashinyan, and help advise him on what Armenia should do to enhance the tech ecosystem and build up high technology in Armenia. So I met with him and gave some advice then. And fast forward a few months later, 2019, he made his first visit to the United States, came to California, and he was coming to the Bay Area, to Silicon Valley. And so I invited him and Hago Barshakian, who at the time was the technology minister, to come to NVIDIA and visit us. So he came. And there's some pictures of it you can find on the internet of the Prime Minister meeting with Jensen Wang, our CEO. We hosted him. Jensen did a great job showing him what we do and all the demos. And then we had a smaller private meeting with him where he asked the same question: what should Armenia do to make to create the conditions so that it can be on the frontier of technology and be a great place for an NVIDIA to come establish an office and a research lab. And Jensen told him, this is 2019, beginning of 2019. He said, well, if you're serious about making your researchers and your technologists successful in Armenia, you should do for your people what I did for my people. His people being the employees of NVIDIA, for researchers and engineers. He said, years ago, we understood that the most important, the most profound, the most impactful force in technology, in computer science, is going to be AI. And the basic instrument of AI is a supercomputer.
It was before ChatGPT.
Wait, 3 years before.
Yeah.
This is 2019. ChatGPT was end of 2022.
Yeah, when like everybody started to talk about AI.
That's right. And he said, what we had done, what Jensen did for our employees, he realized early on that this is the most important instrument for the future. And that if we are going to be on the cutting edge of research and technology, our own engineers, our own researchers need to have access to it. So at the time, there was this list of supercomputers in the world. It's called the top 500. I believe at that moment in time, 3 of the top 20 were for NVIDIA. The rest of them were all national supercomputers. They're like big national labs in the United States, Japan, the others.
Germany, yeah.
But 3 were just for NVIDIA, because Jensen had built it for us to use. And the number 3 was NVIDIA. It was NVIDIA Selene. And so he told the prime minister, this is what I did for my people. He said, if you're serious about enhancing and really building the future technology sector in your country, you should give your citizens the same advantage I give my employees. Build them a supercomputer. So they can start this, because this is the basic instrument. He also told them, he said, building it doesn't mean that you'll be successful. Just because you build it doesn't mean it's going to actually happen. You have to use it, really use it strategically in order for that to happen. He said, however, if you don't build it, you will definitely not be successful. You will not have a technology sector. So we tried to figure out after this meeting, I tried to work with Hagop Ashakyan to make it happen, but unfortunately soon after we had COVID, we had the war, and so all of that was put on hold. Fast forward a few years later, we ended up forming the NVIDIA office here. We had, because of the war in Ukraine, many of our Russian employees started showing up in Armenia, and that created the opportunity for us to help them by creating an office and an entity here, and it created the opportunity for me to finally have an office in Armenia. And so now we have one with more than 100 people working here, most of whom were hired here locally.
Yeah,
they're not the original Russians, but that rekindled the idea of building the AI supercomputer here. And so we tried many different paths to get there. I couldn't quite connect it on many fronts, but last year at WCIT in October, all of the right ingredients came together to make this happen. We had Razmik Hovagimyan from Playtime Ventures. He was here at WCIT, and he had already started thinking about this idea of building an AI factory in Armenia. And he was visiting our nuclear reactor, Medzamor, through Alik. And he suggested it to me. He's like, maybe we should do this. We have excess energy.
Yeah.
And I'd been talking to Alik for over a year about putting this together, because in order to build something like this, you need people who have the expertise in building data centers and the factories and connecting it all up and making it all work. So I tried to figure out how to do it with Alik, and we got closer, but Alik and I just together couldn't find the right mix of customers, outsiders who will use this. So Razmik brought that. And also Nubar Afeyan was here for WCIT.
Yeah.
And Nubar is, very important person in biotech in his company, Flagship Pioneering with Moderna. They're actually big users of AI and AI research. So given his interests in Armenia and also the needs of his company, this completed the final piece of the puzzle we needed. The offtake, the customers who will make usage of this initially. And so since last October, we've been figuring out how to put all the pieces together with the support of NVIDIA to build this over here, with Alik and his team being the ones who provide the not just part of the funding for it, but the boots on the ground that will actually build the AI factory and operate it.
Great. This is probably one of the best examples how diaspora and local Armenians were able to work together and create something amazing and big, so big.
Maybe it is, but we're just getting started. We have to actually build it. And the reason why we were excited to come talk to you today, and hoping with some of your audience to, from the audience that's listening, to get a message across that this is the beginning. It's a seed. We're planting a seed by giving to Armenia an unfair advantage against all of the other countries. What we're building with this supercomputer isn't just just another business or something that where we're investing hundreds of millions of dollars into the place to spend some money here. This is going to be a generator for basic research that will then turn into companies that will grow and become a big part of the economy, and turn Armenia, if we do this correctly, turn Armenia into a significant player in technology on the global stage, so that Armenia can be important. And then we have leverage. Without technology and being on the frontier of technology, Armenia doesn't have a chance of having a good economy.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
without a good economy, Armenia doesn't have a chance of being important to other countries. And without that, Armenia can't have security. So this is much more important than just money, just creating jobs and the basic parts of the economy. Those things are important. We need those. But this is much more than that. And it all starts with higher education. It starts with basic research. You need to have scientists, the researchers in higher education, creating the ideas that put the country on the forefront of this technology.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, they need their basic tool. The most fundamental tool, the basic tool we need today is compute. It's computing. Without that, you can't do it. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to give this to Armenia. And we now have a window, a small window, where Armenia will have an advantage.
Yeah.
In a few years, everyone will have this. Everyone will have this basic infrastructure, because AI and intelligence is so valuable, everybody is going to need it. It'll be just like electricity. When electricity was first invented, not everybody had electric generators, and we didn't have many applications of electricity at the start, just light bulbs and few things. But that created many, many other industries. It powered every industry, and eventually everybody had to have it. But at this moment in time, very few countries have this, and we have this window where we can have the advantage over everyone. So we need to use it. And so this is the message we want to bring to everyone.
Yeah. It's
Get ready.
So what do you think locally? Do we have enough talent and infrastructure and people so we can build this up and use that small window to get a competitive advantage in the region?
Yeah, very good question, Arek. I think in the region, not only in Armenia, there is no knowledge of building such data centers like B200, which is the latest chips that NVIDIA announced, and it will be GB300 next year. So this is another, I see, opportunity for us, actually. And we were talking about this today with Рэվ, that there is one element which Рэվ mentioned, that there will be, of course, the computer capacity that our researchers have access to, which will be advantage to other countries. Just for a moment to back up and just to highlight this part, because I think it's super important for our audience to understand, because many people now talking about this $500 million number, or it's $500 million investment in Armenia, everybody excited about that number. But what excites me, and I think Рэվ and others who are involved in this, is not this $500 million number, but is this window of opportunity where we can create startups or new research, which can be tens of billions of dollars if we do it right. So that's why I think it's today we had also a meeting with several university rectors and discussing universities' involvement into this as well from research perspective. Because, for example, everybody talks now about OpenAI.
Yeah.
OpenAI was a research project which Jensen was telling in his keynote, and Рэv was mentioning today, that NVIDIA gave their first supercomputer GPUs basically to OpenAI as a gift for them to do research. And
You can see the picture of it on the internet. This is back when Elon Musk was one of the OpenAIs. Jensen delivered our first AI computer, AI system called DGX-1.
DGX-1, yeah.
To OpenAI. He drove it up there in San Francisco in 2016.
Yeah.
And was signing it. So there's a picture of Elon and Jensen signing this thing. Back then, nobody wanted the computer.
Yeah.
Jensen built this, imagining everybody's
Something
going
can
to
come
need
out.
this, and nobody would buy it. And so the first customer he found was Elon, who said, "Hey, we can use this," but he said it's for a non-profit.
So there was no business,
But he gave it to but he gave it to him, and look
where
what's
they
been
are
created
now.
there.
Right.
There.
So we have exactly same opportunity here, where we can enable compute, which is not accessible. I want everybody to understand this type of compute not accessible to the top universities in the world, like Stanford, MIT. They have limited resources. So now we have amount of compute which in most cases exceeds the top universities or even countries in terms of access to the compute. And to the Рэv's point, we have advantage. It will be, I don't know, next 2 years, maybe next 4 years, 3 years, nobody knows how long, but definitely it will not be for next 10 years. So it is this short period of time that we can use this advantage to create something new where we can be in the forefront on technology. So this is the main message. What comes to your question, if we have a talent or not on building something like this. So definitely we have enough talent on understanding what is data center and how we are building data center. But to your point, this kind of data center was not built in the region. So definitely we don't have people who have done this before. But we have people who can learn fast on delivering this and become also specialized in this. As NVIDIA is now producing thousands of these and ramping up their production globally, I think talent needed to build such data centers is also in a big shortage. So we have the second opportunity where our people who will learn by this process, we will not be building ourselves, but we will helping and learning on this process together with the vendors that we will select.
That's a very important point. This we call them data centers still, but it's actually somewhat of a misnomer. It's the wrong word to use for it. The data centers we've been building for the past few decades, they're about data. It's about storing data, and it's about moving data, which isn't a lot of compute. There's not a lot of computation happening there. What we're building here are factories. These are AI factories.
Can you please explain what do you mean by AI factory? Like,
Yes, that's precisely what I would love to do. What is a factory? A factory is a big machine that takes as input two things. It takes energy, power as input, and it takes raw material. And what you output is a refined product where you combine the energy with the raw materials, and the thing that comes out is more valuable than the inputs.
yeah,
Right? So you put energy into an automotive factory, and you put the raw materials, the metals, plastics, all the pieces, the physical pieces that go into it. It gets assembled, these things are transformed, and out comes a car which is worth far more than the inputs are, and you sell it for more. Now with data centers, that's not the case. With data centers, you're just trying to, as cheaply as possible, store and move your data around. The budget for a data center comes from the IT budgets of companies, of enterprises. Companies try to minimize the amount they spend on IT. They try to spend as little as possible.
yeah,
But for a company that creates factories, where you take as input things that are of lower value, transform into something higher value, you want to invest more in factories, build bigger and bigger ones, because the more you create, the more revenue you create. And so what we're building now with AI factories is exactly this. We take as input energy, power is a key input, and the other input, our raw material, is not physical, it's information.
data.
Data, information comes in. And what we produce, what comes out of it, are what we call tokens, which is a form of intelligence. So we're taking as input raw data and information, and we get intelligence out of it in the form of these tokens. That's how we measure it.
Yeah,
And the more tokens you can produce for the same amount of energy and information, the more efficient you are, the more value you create. Now, the interesting thing about all of this is that for countries that have excess energy, excess power, this solves a key problem that they always have, which is how do you sell your excess energy? How do you export that? To export energy, you have to have a distribution system. You have to have a grid. You have to have power lines that allow you to export it. It's very hard to store excess energy. We can't have enough batteries and systems that we have to store it by moving water up and getting gravity back from it.
Yeah.
They're lossy. You lose a lot of energy this way. You lose energy over the grid. And then there's all kinds of issues with geography, geopolitics, and whatever. But if you can convert this energy into tokens, which are just numbers, they're just numbers, you can store that and you can distribute it around the world over the internet for essentially free without any loss.
Yeah, selling electricity to Japan, for example.
So this is a way of exporting our excess electricity, which Armenia actually has. We have excess electricity from our nuclear. We're only a country of 3 million people, but we have a nuclear reactor. Plus, we're blessed with hydro electric power, and we have plenty of sun.
Yeah.
There's lots of solar being built. So this is a country of energy abundance. But it's very hard to export this energy. But in this way, we get the best.
There is no physical limitation.
There's no limitation. We can convert this excess energy into something that's of even more value. And this thing of more value, the tokens, can be stored and can be transported
anywhere.
lossless.
Yeah.
Without it. So it's for our economy great. I just wanted to add one thing as well, as a key part of getting all of this going, of course, has been the Armenian government. And most recently, since Mukhitar became the technology minister, I met with him last year when he visited NVIDIA and continued to at WCIT and after this. So with their support, it's been critical for us to build this, and especially for the part which I feel is the most important for Armenia, which is securing capacity on this supercomputer for our researchers, for our startups, the government plays a key part in this, in ensuring
absolutely.
that there is offtake, connecting the users of the supercomputer, and ensuring that they're going to have capacity for this for its future usage.
Yeah, I think for NVIDIA as well, it was super important. The participation of Ministry of High Tech was very active on discussions
Prime
together
Minister.
with Razmik, Prime Minister, with his meetings, and later also showing the commitment of the country on looking, because for NVIDIA, I think this is not only a project for Armenia, but for the region, but they need to have also support from the local government, is there. So I think it played another key element in the puzzle.
Yes,
that,
without their support, it definitely would not have happened.
Yeah.
So that's a key part. This is why it took so long. We've
Yeah.
been working towards this for 6 years.
Yeah.
We had to have all of the different ingredients come together. We need to have the private sector with their demand. We need to have capital that's funding this. We need to have the government support in terms of building it and creating the conditions and the space for this to happen, and for higher education, the researchers, and its interaction with the government. All of that had to come into play. So this is a great credit to not just any one of us sitting here.
Yeah.
It's for
Yeah.
everybody
Involved in this,
who has been part of this in all of the different spheres.
So basically, it's like giant project that involves everyone, like government, private sector, universities, startups, I don't know, researchers. So it's like very complex system that you are building, and probably everyone will get something from it.
Absolutely. And this is where we have to be smart as Armenians who are part of a very small country. We're small people. We're like a startup. Startup companies have a disadvantage against big countries. But somehow startups, over and over again, especially in technology, we see they end up growing and becoming, in some cases, they displace some of the incumbents.
Yeah.
Armenia is exactly like that. We're a small country. But now we have this opportunity. This is a period of great disruption.
Yeah.
AI, what we've introduced into the world, the ability to manufacture intelligence, produce intelligence, is as big or a bigger change to society and the world order as electricity was when it was introduced.
Wow. That's a bold statement.
And I mean, think about it for a second. What is more valuable, more powerful than intelligence? What is the limit to the amount of intelligence we can use? Almost everything you think about, if you add more intelligence, it's better. So that's what's happening. And in these periods of change, the small players who are smart, who can move fast, they can gain share, they can gain a position in this new world that forms quickly and embed themselves there. That's what happens with all the big tech companies. Before they were big, the Nvidias, Googles, Amazons, there were other big players that were there, but they did things by the old rules. When the rules change, the small companies that can understand how the rules are changing and take advantage of it, they become the big ones. So Armenia has this opportunity right now.
Yeah.
We are a small player. The rules have been set a certain way, but all the rules are changing now. And AI is changing all of the rules.
So basically everything is changing, and we have a chance to have raw material for the change. And if we will use it right way, we can gain a lot of advantage.
Yeah, like an example, maybe Rev haven't mentioned to add, which is, I think, very, very important for Armenia. We have 3 million population. We were talking about this today. Rev was mentioning as well. So with these new AI tools, right, the ChatGPT or new what they call AI agents that, for example, on call center, soon we will have agents which we can answer most of the questions, by talking to you over the phone. So call centers, for example, for our telecom or for any bank or any company. Then now AI is able to cover the 90%, in some cases even 100% of the questions by just simply talking as an AI agent. So this means it's a workforce. So to enable workforce in the country, if we are smart enough and fast enough to start creating this virtual workforce, then we are 3 million population with 30 million people working for us, or not people in this case, agents, but who are contributing to the economy, because we can start selling these services to many parts of the world. So these AI factories have several roles. One of the role is to build research, what we were talking in the initial as an opportunity, that we can come up with the new chat of GPT idea and create a company out of it and then introduce to the world, because we have access to something which others don't have access. So this is one part of the AI factory. Second part of the AI factory is that, except that research element, we can build services and just run on this AI factory. Like, for example, ChatGPT runs on the factory like we are building here, that is built in US or in other countries. So we can run services on top of them. Once we created a company which do virtual agents, for example, we can allocate them resource. So anytime you ask or you talk to this agent, the compute is done in this AI factory, the tokens that Рэվ was telling. So this means we create output for agents by this enabling virtual workforce. And the next element is physical workforce, which I think Рэվ will explain better than me, which comes to robots, AI robots, and physical, that they can do physical things, so not virtual things. So the factory that we are building right now, so Firebird is a US company, basically, and we start the project in Armenia, so it will be the first phase of the project, and the second phase will be beginning of next year, expanding these 5,000 GPUs to 15,000 GPUs, but we are aiming to build several data centers around the world as well to enable GPU compute. So Firebird will become international player on building factories, so we are starting it from Armenia, but it's a US company founded in US, which will enable these AI factories globally, basically.
Wow, that will be amazing. But what about local infrastructure? Do we have like a good local infrastructure, like internet connection? And a data center that will help to transfer that excess of electricity as tokens to the world?
So I mean, location-wise, we are now deciding location. Prime Minister suggested to be in the academic city, which we are now exploring the options, the pros and cons on doing fast. For us now, I think the most important to be able to do it as soon as possible. So we want to launch it as soon as possible.
When you plan to start the construction?
We want to start again as soon as possible, like today, after this
Speed
podcast.
matters. That's for small incumbents, for startups, for startup countries.
Speed matters.
Speed matters, and they can use your size to your advantage. Because we're small, we can make decisions faster. There's less people that need to be involved and can move quickly. And so that's the most important thing. It's actually not that important where it is right now, because this won't be if we build it, this won't be the last one. We'll build many. The most important is to build the first one and to do it as quickly as possible. So the decision on where it should be and how it should form, the only criterion that matters is how quickly can we do it, whichever one's the fastest. So we can't spend a year debating where it should be, because that by itself would defeat the whole purpose. If we wait too long, then it won't matter anymore.
Okay.
So we see now what is the availabilities on the electricity, on the space itself, available buildings as well as options. So we are considering all, of course, taking into it.
But it won't be the last one either. So once that's built, wherever we can get the energy and the space, we can keep expanding. Just like I said earlier, with factories, unlike data centers, you want to build as many as possible. The more you build, the more value you create, the more GDP and economy you generate. So we want more and more and more. And we're not limited by the number of people with these. We can build it as long as we can secure enough energy, we can build more, and they can be anywhere.
Yeah. We have some advantages there. We have like nuclear facility. The solar is growing very fast in Armenia.
Right.
And also, I think there is subsidies, yes, for solar electricity.
For building the solar electricity, not the electricity itself, but for manufacturing the solar plants, there is subsidies. Yeah, there is enough electricity, at least for this stage. We don't have any doubt on that.
I think I read somewhere that you will probably use around from 2 to 3% of all electricity that is produced in Armenia.
The first phase by itself is 15 megawatts. So for you to talking on the numbers, right? If next phase we count, it will be another maybe 50 megawatt. So we are talking in total about 100 megawatt, if you have seen in our press release. So then you can calculate how many percent it is of the. If it will not grow.
But that's also based on what's produced today.
What's produced today, right?
Over that time, we'll increase production using all these other means.
Yeah, because like you can read in the news like every day that like Facebook or I don't know, OpenAI, Apple, they are making contracts with nuclear facilities to get more electricity.
And those take a long time to bring up.
Yeah.
So they're placing the bets, these investments for like 5-6 years from now. It takes a long time. Yeah. In the meantime, they're also building power plants right next to these big gigawatt factories that they're creating that are using natural gas and more traditional sources of energy.
Yeah. Like probably a lot of businessmen or people who are planning to start some kind of AI startups are listening to this podcast right now. And what your advice will be, like how this infrastructure will change IT landscape in Armenia, and in which areas business people or people who are like planning to startup should consider investing or?
Yeah, so the first order effect of building these is that the actual process of building and operating an AI factory, that's an industry of itself.
Yeah.
And so that's the business NVIDIA is in. We create the key part of this infrastructure.
The chips.
Not just the chips. We build the full computers. Essentially, our unit of compute, our basic unit, is a whole rack. It's everything that goes in it. But the fundamental compute part is what we build. But we're part of a larger ecosystem that builds these special data centers. These are liquid-cooled data centers because normal data centers, you have 10, maybe 20 kilowatts per rack of electricity.
Yeah.
Our current Blackwell generations, the one we're installing, that we'll be installing here, it's 130 kilowatts.
Per rack.
And the upcoming generations in a year or two are going to be a megawatt per rack.
So they have like heating very, very
Yeah,
fast.
this is intense. So all that energy turns into heat.
Yeah.
How you remove the heat, reclaim it and everything, that's a big engineering challenge in and of itself. And there's a large ecosystem of companies that are now ramping up for what we're going to produce in a few years.
With megawatts
to build
per
this.
rack.
This whole industry of building these kinds of factories, all the components, is a multi-trillion-dollar industry already.
Wow.
And so by building it here now, Armenia gets an advantage. We get to learn and be part of how to build and operate these AI factories, which is itself a big industry. So that's the first order effect. And Armenians who participate in this, who work in this, learn they will be the best in the world on the frontier of this industry.
Also very few in the world. Best and very few.
Yes, very few to start with.
Yeah.
And we can also service other countries with this as well and help build them. That expertise will be useful for that. But then there's the second order effects. Having the AI compute capacity in the country freely available to our researchers, to our startups, to our tech companies over here, will give them an advantage over all the other startups and researchers and countries in the world at this moment in time. And they will start producing new technologies that will be the seeds of new companies that will eventually turn into unicorns, into multi-billion-dollar companies that will then attract more talent from outside to come into our research institutions and into our startups, into our other all the other companies that come here, and we'll get a flywheel, a virtuous cycle forming from this.
Wow.
So Firebird, just to tell, is very interested for this ecosystem to establish in Armenia. So one is universities research, which will get free compute, but also companies and startups, we are interested to invest into them as well with compute. So enabling them to have access to the compute, and us as Firebird investing basically with that tools, let's say so.
And how the whole project is financed?
So
it's like a
so
lot
it's
of,
part equity and part debt financing, which we are now formalizing with our debt financiers. I will say there is, what I can tell now, not names, but there is huge interest from both investors.
This is actually the standard way that
yeah.
all of the AI factories on the world are formed. You have equity financing the original
debt.
investors. Alik is one of them. Razmi Govagimian, who I mentioned earlier, and Nubar are kind of the core ones that are doing the equity. And then based on what we call offtake, this is guaranteed contracts for usage of it. You can then go use that to raise money. There's lots of capital in the world.
Yeah.
You can based off of the initial equity and this offtake, go raise more money to then fund the building of it, because it's like actually any other infrastructure project, whether it's a power plant, the grid, roads, skyscrapers,
you need to have
shopping
customers,
malls,
right?
You can raise money if you have a good guarantee of having customers in the place and an initial seed amount of capital. All of it can come together. So that's how Firebird is formed. It's primarily from that. And one of the key off-takers or the guarantors of this is the Armenian government. They had to be a piece of this. So the way the government is participating is by saying they will guarantee that they will buy some capacity from Firebird to give to the universities, to give to the local ecosystem. And on top of that, Firebird will also give more capacity as well, maybe at discounted rates, or we'll figure out exactly how that works.
So you already have a guarantee from Armenian government, you have a guarantee from Nubar and his biotech companies. You have the commitment of some investors like Alik and Razmik. Razmik is the guy who managed the Messi
Playtime Ventures,
which
is
right.
I think Lionel Messi's.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that he does.
Yeah.
He has
Among many others. Yeah.
investors.
Yeah, he's becoming very famous in Armenia.
Right.
So basically, we have the commitments. You have the customers who gave the commitment that they will buy some capacity.
Right.
And the next phase is to secure the finance from international investors or banking sector and start the project.
Yeah, we are starting the project, so I can say that the project we are started already, not starting, by announcing this on the stage. This means we have already secured this. Otherwise, we wouldn't make such a big noise and then start finding for financing. So I don't want now to make confusion that it's not there. So the project is secured. And we are starting, we are finalizing with whom, at what portion we are doing, because as I said, the interest and appetite is quite huge. So there is no doubt.
We're racing right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alik wants to have the data center for this, for the AI factory, built by the end of the year.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is the goal we put in front of us, that it should be operating by year end. So this is where we are now coming from. So we put the date, and now we are doing everything possible to make sure that we have, with the good news that we have commitment from NVIDIA that they will be able to deliver. We have discussions with U.S. State Department, government. U.S. government is also supporting I want to mention this as well. The embassy in Armenia have expressed a lot of support.
Ambassador Kavin,
Yeah.
who we've been meeting with, right before the announcement, I went to go meet with the ambassador along with a few other executives and vice presidents from NVIDIA who had come here,
Yeah.
so we could ensure that everything is okay. Because these AI supercomputers, there's a lot of geopolitical
Right.
Yeah.
aspects to it. You can see there, for example, we can't sell them to China any longer. We want to make sure all of the parties involved are happy with this, and we got the go ahead.
Yeah, so it's
We had
it's
it a
it's
few
very
weeks ago.
complex project overall looking to this. So, but we were able to manage all these puzzles to the
Yeah,
point where
yeah.
we did announcement. And the good thing is as well, I mean, you can see the press release. Ambassador also gave her remarks in our press release by supporting the project, which is super important as well. So that's the goal, to start it as soon as possible, to get all the permissions and to be able to run this by end of the year.
Yeah. Like you in the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned about national security also. Like I think Nubar was talking about it before this project, that we need to build something that can be international interest, like, and comparing it with Taiwan, like if Taiwan would not have TSMC.
Yeah, I don't know about that angle exactly, but just in a general sense, what I was saying is, if Armenia is not important to anyone else,
Yeah.
if other countries don't consider us important for their economy, for their business, for the other things, then we're always just going to be begging for help from them as just out of the kindness of their hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just not how the world works. You know, the way the world works is people will help you when it helps them. And so what we need to do is make ourselves useful to everyone else. And through that, if we can be useful in the global ecosystem, we can have partners in the global ecosystem, in economy, in the business, and the thing that actually fundamentally every person cares about is taking care of their families. It comes down to economics.
Yeah.
If Armenia can somehow be useful to enough people in other countries so they can take care of their families, then we can be at the negotiating table. And through that, you can secure peace.
Yeah.
Without that, you have no leverage. You don't have power. It all starts from economic security. We have to create economic security here. And fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have an abundance of natural resources we can just take from the ground to sell. Our natural resource is our brains, the Armenian brains.
Yeah.
And they're great. We have great Armenian brains. We just need to channel that and amplify it.
Consolidated.
And so that we can export the product of these brains, both directly and indirectly through the artificial brains we create.
Yeah, what Ali was talking about, that we can multiply our workforce. It can have like amazing effect on our economy. Like we can grow our productivity, because productivity in Armenia is like very, very low. We are like in hundreds.
Yeah, so that's actually what Alex was touching on here, is something that I've been talking about for a little bit. I spoke at AUA at the commencement address a few weeks ago and mentioned about this. If you look at the measure that we have of productivity for countries is GDP, gross domestic product. This is the total amount of value as measured by currency, by dollars that the country produces. You know, there's a calculation for this. This number for every country is a function of exactly two variables. The first variable is your population. How many people are in the country? The second variable is how efficient is each person on average. This GDP per person that we evaluate. Now, for countries that want to grow their economies, the only method we had, the only lever we had to really change the total productivity is changing the efficiency per person. We make them more efficient by giving them more tools, or actually the best way usually is education. By educating your people more, that increases their productivity. This is the number one measure. But unfortunately, that has a limit. No matter how much we increase the productivity, let's say we match it to the richest countries in the world, like the United States, Armenia will still have a maximum of 3 million people worth of productivity.
Yeah.
That number you can't grow.
Still productive, but still 3 million.
Yeah, it'll be more, but that's the ceiling of total GDP you can have. What AI is changing, and this is why it's such a powerful force, is unlike all of the other technologies that have come before, this technology isn't just amplifying individuals. It's not a tool. It can be used as a tool, but it's not only a tool. As we take these AIs and we give them agency, we turn them into agents that can do things on their own, they're now no longer behaving like a tool we add to a human. They're acting like another participant in our economy. It's like having another employee or having another laborer. The agents that we're creating today are knowledge agents. They work inside computers in our knowledge systems. They operate on the internet. Alik mentioned call centers. You can have an agent that talks to your customers and helps them resolve customer service issues. Up until today, the only way to do that is by hiring more humans, and the number of laborers you had that could do that is dependent on what your population is. But now we actually have the technology to create this kind of agent, this laborer, which as long as you have enough AI factories and you have enough energy, we can produce more and more of them.
Yeah.
So you can add these agents into your economy, and instead of it being 3 million Armenian citizens that are contributing to the economy, it'll be 3 million plus 100 million agents that are contributing.
Or employees, basically.
Yeah.
And if you have the AI factories to power them, that's the fundamental engine to add these.
Close the loop, basically.
And in the next wave that's coming, it's going to be the physical agents.
Robots.
These are the physical robots that are going to do many of the things that only humans could do. We're now going to introduce these physical robots with AIs, these agent brains that we add to them. And so small countries that have a disadvantage in population can close that gap.
Yeah.
We can effectively increase our population by adding knowledge agents and physical agents as robots into our economy.
Just to add knowledge on this, Vahek Uzoyan, my good friend from Service Titan, he said very well, I think, this point. I don't want people listening us to get afraid. I think you should be scared if you are not prepared to use these tools and you are not using them to change your economy. You should be not because it's taking jobs and creating new opportunities. So if you are not using it, you should be scared because you will just be left over and sit. Other nations, other countries definitely will do it. So in that scenario, you should be scared. But in the scenario where we are in the forefront and we want to use it as from the first hand, and we have now the opportunity with the help of Ṛև, NVIDIA, government, all these stakeholders. Now we have the opportunity to use these tools, to use this. Our companies have opportunity to start using these agents and overcome all the things that we should be feared.
Yeah,
You know, all these fears always stem from the same place, which is people have a hard time imagining what the world will look like if there's more labor, more intensive. We imagine that there's a fixed amount of work, and that work is divided among the people that already exist. We have a hard time imagining if you had more people, how much more work we would do. That's fundamentally what we worry about, and that's why there's always these issues. People worry about immigrants or others coming and joining the labor force. They think they'll take jobs away. But you look throughout human history, throughout all civilizations, throughout the population of the world as it's grown, we've never run out of jobs. We always figure out how to create more work and do more things. The more people there are, the more participants they are. Having more people, having more laborers doesn't take away work. It creates the opportunity for more work.
Yeah.
And it transforms as well. I mean, the industrial
changes.
revolution changed, right? Before
Changed the nature of it.
But it's still
there was more work
Yeah.
and more productivity and more wealth and more abundance that was created from that.
Yeah, for sure.
So we should use it for our benefit, basically. We shouldn't be afraid from that. That's what I want
It's
to say.
interesting. So future economy's bottleneck will be energy and computing power, not people.
Yes.
So basically,
right.
we don't need more land, we don't need more people, but we need more computing power.
In a way,
and
it's no different than
energy.
now. Energy has always been
Yeah.
fundamentally the bottleneck, even before industrialized society.
Yeah, fire.
And energy, fire, the sun, everything is limited by how much energy is available.
Yeah, because when you see when the GDP of the country grows, the energy consumption
Yes.
grows with it.
Right.
And saying this is why when people talk about limiting energy usage and we should stop using it and conserve more and more. Fundamentally, what you're also saying is that human society and growth and their well-being should also stop. The two go hand in hand.
yeah,
What we
connected.
need to do is not stop producing more energy. We just need to produce energy in such a way that's not as harmful. That's not harmful to
Nature.
the nature and the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that's why nuclear energy,
Yeah,
hydroelectric energy,
nuclear is
solar,
having
this
a
is such great.
comeback.
There's actually no lack of energy.
Yeah.
The sun produces immense amounts of energy that all goes wasted. We don't use it all. If we can capture a tiny fraction of that, that's more than enough for us to power everything we need moving into the future.
I think it was yesterday Elon Musk posted that in 10 years, China will have more energy produced by sun than US with nuclear power.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the facts, but that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they are ramping up production of solar like very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. The world is changing
It is.
very, very fast. And
Yeah, we
is.
can be afraid of it changing, or we can be smart and see it as an opportunity. Within times of change like this, there's great opportunities in there for the little guys.
yeah.
This is Armenia's
Yeah.
chance.
The way you put it, it sounds that we have like very big competitive advantage because we have brain power, we have people like you who has a network and helping us to build that data centers, people like Alec, and also
Razmig and Nubar,
yeah.
and we have a wise and a wise and forward-thinking government who actually has been a part of this from the very start. The prime minister, like I said, came in 2019. He got the advice
Yeah.
from Jensen, and he tried to help us make it happen. And we went through the various waves because of COVID and the war and whatnot. We put on hold, but wherever possible, they've always helped. And so this is a big deal. I talk to many governments around the world, and the bigger ones, and they all say AI is important and they should do this, but because they're bigger,
They are
it's actually slower.
Yeah.
And so this is the advantage that we have.
Which we should use, basically.
and what about like everyday people who is watching this podcast who are like just working everyday jobs and they are not planning to build businesses or startups? How they should think about AI? How would they should use AI? Like I think this question goes to both of you.
Yeah, I think they are using currently, right? ChatGPT. I mean, maybe not vast majority of our population, but it's increasing day by day. Basically, my wife, for example, she was not using ChatGPT. I'm using it already long time. She just started, but now she uses it constantly. And I think these type of examples we have a lot in our, not only in Armenia, it comes to every country, but in Armenia, if you are asking, I think they are becoming. So it's not only the companies that will use agents, what we were talking about, and later physical agents, but it's also consumers who are benefiting, starting from research. Let's say if we enable research for biotech companies locally, there are many biotech startups in Armenia, people who are doing research in biotech. So if they start doing research, for example, there are many examples of cancer treatment research now being done on AI and many other directions. I'm just saying cancer as it is easy to digest, that it's a problem that is not fully solved now. So then once something came out there, the users is population, basically, healthcare. So one of the major topics is that being transformed by AI. So it's everywhere. To the Rev's point, it's not that we can take one industry and tell AI is automating this or creating an agent for call center. It's in every industry, having multiplied effect. So now if Armenia is good at, for example, something, if we start concentrating, this was also one of the topics of our discussion, we cannot do everything in parallel. So we, as Armenians, we should also focus on our researchers and give them guidance. Guys, this is the direction that world is moving. This is, we believe, will be one of the unique opportunities that we can take. And we tell all our researchers, universities, startups, start thinking on this direction, and let's put all our efforts and be smart, not to be stupid enough not to collaborate with each other. So we need all these researchers not to think about, or universities, not to think about each other as competition, but think about each other how we can join forces, because it's not one-man show. So you cannot win if you are acting alone. So it's not one person sport, right?
Like us.
Yeah, and
we just don't have enough
limited
resources
absolutely
to balkanize into all these small groups.
Yeah.
We have to combine our efforts, align together, and work together to really maximize
to have
this.
results. Because as to the Rev's point, we have this short period of time, so we need to be razor focused on what we are doing and razor collaborative with each other.
So basically, the question that everyone were asking in Armenia, where we should focus, now has an answer because of this project.
I'm not sure if it's fully answered yet, exactly what research we should be doing with this new compute capabilities, but I think it will soon be answered. We are trying to, like Alek mentioned, just before this podcast, we're meeting with many of the rectors and leaders in the higher education and education system here. We want to gather everyone together so we can have an aligned strategy for the country, not just for each university, not for each organization. We should combine together and go focus our work not on 100 different areas of research. We don't have enough researchers to do everything. But go choose 2-3 things that we all contribute to and make maximal use of this, and from that it'll grow.
But the hardest part is to understand where to focus. Like, can you like give us the example in NVIDIA? Like you were building AI that software that everybody is using right now, much before everybody understood the benefits of it. Like how you were able to accomplish it. What was the strategy to focus on something that is not exist. There is no market for it, but you still focused on it. You build it, and it like multiplied your company. Like NVIDIA is now one of the most valuable companies in the world.
Yeah, the way we do it,
the stock is back.
The way we do it, I mean, it's this is actually Jensen's, our CEO's, true genius. He, from the very start, he decided that NVIDIA should be a company where people come to our company to do their life's work. And the kind of people that would work at NVIDIA are computer scientists, computer engineers, to do their life's work. which has implications. Like, what does that mean if you truly believe that? The first thing that you have to accept if you want to do that is that the people who are doing their life's work and are the best in the world at computer science and computer engineering do not want to go recreate something somebody else has done. If there's already a market and there's a technical solution for that thing, the best people in the world who are on the frontier don't want to go recreate that and just do it cheaper.
Yeah.
That is not a motivating thing. And so from the start, we decided we're going to go build things that are impossible, that are maybe barely possible, that are interesting to the kind of people that we bring into our company, so they can feel proud of the life's work that they're doing, keep them interested. And so by that logic, we then had to go pick what Jensen calls $0 billion industries.
I like the name.
And it's a very good name because it tells there's a lot of information encoded into that. Because it's saying it's zero, that's zero today, but that billion implies that it has the potential to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. So we imagine if you were to solve this problem, what would the market be? Would it be large? We don't know exactly how large it's going to be, of course, but will it be a large one? Because it's a really hard problem. Most people haven't even thought about what the implications of that thing are. So the very first one we decided to do when NVIDIA was formed was to solve the problem of rendering for computer graphics for video games and PC gaming. This is 1993. It was a $0 billion market. It just didn't exist. But we imagined that if you could build a computer that could simulate a 3D world and produce realistic-looking images, that every potential PC user in the world would be a gamer. That was the thinking. It was zero at that point. We thought it should be large. Every person on Earth can potentially be a gamer. And so we set about solving that, and it turned out to be true. So that was the first thing. And then we imagined, as we expanded it and made our computers more general, it could do more things than rendering, which is physics simulation of how light works. So let's expand it to be more general, and you can do more kinds of physics. We introduced CUDA, which is the programming language and platform and system, so you can program it to do other kinds of simulation, other kinds of scientific computing. And that's we introduced in 2006. But we didn't actually know what would be the killer app. We just knew, seeing how computing had worked for decades, that the more computing you made available, people figured out how to do something valuable from it. So we imagined that if we can unlock the possibility of having orders of magnitude more compute than a normal computer can do, people will figure out what to do with it. At first, we picked a few that we can imagine. Scientific computing, you could do weather simulation, seismic analysis for oil and gas exploration, medical imaging, processing of data you get from ultrasounds and other MRIs, and these things with CUDA. We went and dove into those, but mostly we were waiting to see who would figure out what to do with this capability. And we waited. We thought it would happen faster, but it took 7 years. Jensen had imagined, he said, that one day some grad student's going to figure out what to do with this. And we made a big decision early on that was a big risk for us. This capability of CUDA, we didn't put in every, it wasn't natural to put it in every one of our GPUs. Our biggest business was gaming, which
and
the gaming GPUs were price sensitive. By adding CUDA into our gaming GPUs, the cost of that GPU to us increases, which is a headwind against our competition. But games didn't need this capability. But Jensen said, well, if we are going to be a computing platform, for this new kind of computing, it needs to have an install base so that developers and that grad student will have a computer to go develop on. So we built it and we put it in every single gaming PC, and we waited 6-7 years. And then AlexNet happened at the University of Toronto as a grad students. And this whole deep learning thing started with image classification on AlexNet. And when it happened, we were alert. Jensen saw it and said, this isn't just a killer application. It's not just image classification. This is a whole new way of creating software for solving problems that we never imagined we could solve before. And so we set about the future. We imagined this basic idea of image classification. We're like, this is going to actually solve algorithmic problems that are going to be valuable to every industry. But we need to build supercomputers to power that. And we need to create the conditions by which we can have enough data to feed it so we can create eventually what we're calling physical AI.
This is when neural network, basically, AlexNet is neural
AlexNet was
network.
2012 that it came about. And so we started building the first AI supercomputer, DGX-1. 2016, he delivered that to OpenAI. And we started planning for eventually this is going to happen. And then 2012, ChatGPT happens.
Yeah.
And the important thing about ChatGPT wasn't that was a new technology that was invented. Actually, the technology for ChatGPT was invented years prior. The transformer was 2017, and even GPT-3, the model that was used in ChatGPT, was there for a few years.
Yeah.
What was important there was that for the first time, the common person, everyone could actually interact with the AI.
The interface
Which is 22,
changed.
2022, yeah.
And that then created this
Exploded,
explosion
yeah.
because we had been creating the potential energy for this whole system. ChatGPT just unlocked it.
Yeah.
Now everybody understood what the value was, and NVIDIA was far in front of everyone else here because we, unlike most other companies, we invest in $0 billion markets that take years and years to develop. And so the takeaway for Armenia should be that you shouldn't just be looking for short-term things where you can take market share from others. We should peer into the future, try to understand the dynamics of what's happening in the world, and position ourselves now for what's coming years from now. And what we're doing here with bringing this AI supercomputer to Armenia with Firebird, this is essentially that. This is a long play for positioning ourselves for that. How it exactly forms, we can't predict.
Yeah.
But having that capability, that potential energy here, will surely create advantages, create something wonderful that we didn't imagine in the future.
And maybe future $0 billion market.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how like businesses are predicting it, because like I think it was 2 years ago I was talking with your brother here, and he was talking about the infrastructure, how it is important, how they are building, how we're investing, and a lot of people are thinking that like why we need it in Armenia. Now we have the answer. So it's very, very interesting.
You know, for those of us that are in technology and on the forefront of technology, it's obvious. I think for most people it isn't. But the way I think they can maybe understand it is, I don't think anybody questions whether you need roads in your country. If you build more roads, you create more economy. Connecting up people to each other and allowing the transportation of goods is a good thing.
Yeah.
Creating power lines and a power grid, that's a good thing. It creates the foundation so you can have more businesses, that you can have more abundance within everybody's home by having access to these things. This is basic infrastructure. It's hard for people to imagine right now what it means to build AI infrastructure, because we still haven't seen all the applications of it.
And why we need to invest it there heavily.
Right. But it's like 100 years ago when electrification started. at the very beginning, when we started producing electricity, we were still not sure what the applications were. They found the first killer application, which was the light bulb.
Yeah.
Being able to light up your city, your homes at night was huge. It actually enhanced the economy. People could work at night, which was a generator of more productivity, of GDP. But that's not the only thing we've done with electricity. Look at everything we have around us because of that. Who would have imagined that we would have computers, that we would have the internet, that you would have social media,
connectivity,
that you would have all of the things that we enjoy from electricity today, air conditioning, you name it, everything that's around us. We just take it for granted right now. But those that invested in electricity first and in that infrastructure, they had a benefit, they had an advantage. It really helped the United States that it happened there, with Thomas Edison and General Electric and Tesla and the others forming it. So today we are at that same moment. This is like a century ago when electrification was starting. There were a few applications we could see that are valuable, but if you only limit your imagination to what you're seeing right now, you're missing the picture.
Yeah.
This is going to unlock value in every industry, in every place, and the applications that emerge, we're not going to know. We went through a little bit of this, or quite a bit of this, with the invention of the internet and the web. At first, people didn't imagine companies like Facebook and Meta forming from it.
Or
Who would have thought
Amazon.
Amazon and what Amazon has become, or Uber?
Yeah.
You know, these are things like you didn't imagine, and they've become the world's largest companies doing this. So this wave is actually bigger than all of those. It's bigger than the internet. It's bigger than electricity. So what will it unlock? Can't be sure, but we can be sure that it's going to be big, and that we need to have it if we are going to participate in this.
A couple of days ago, I was watching like very old interview of Steve Jobs, and he was talking about when we invented television. We just took radio shows and put it with the picture, and we didn't understand the real usage of the TV. We were just projecting what we know about radio, and we were copying on television, and it took a lot of time for us to like create TV shows, movies, and all that kind of stuff.
Understand situation comedies,
all
of those things. I think was it the I Love Lucy show was like the big one that invented that whole form.
And it's really interesting. You can compare how the technologies used to change, and we are in like forefront of different revolution, and it's interesting like exercise to imagine what kind of things can.
And this one's even harder to imagine with, because the power of this is so much greater than all the rest of them.
Yeah.
You had asked the question earlier about how the average person in Armenia might be able to use AI. How will it affect them? And Ali was talking about how now finally his wife is using it. The interesting thing about this technology, unlike all the other ones before it, is the nature of the technology itself makes it more accessible to everyone. All the previous technologies, you have to become an expert in that technology to use it. In order for you to benefit from steam engines, you would have to be kind of a steam engine engineer, a mechanical engineer, in order to really make it and use it. If you're going to take advantage of computers, you had to learn computer science and programming and be an expert in that to make use of it.
Yeah.
This one, to use AI and to really make use of it, you actually don't need to be an expert in building AI. For the first time, this technology is itself an enabler.
Yeah.
AI is actually making it so that the number of programmers in the world is going to go from, I think the estimates are somewhere like 30 million people in the world write software today. Only 30 million people in the world really have the advantage of computing for their jobs. Now every person in the world is essentially a programmer. because the programming language is just your native language. It's English, it's Armenian, it's German, whatever it is. You can instruct a computer, tell it what you want it to do, and it will convert your language, your idea, into the actual software that it runs. This is the only time that's ever happened.
A couple of days ago, I created a software with Replit. I think you know
Yes,
that.
Replit.
Yeah,
It's great software.
and it took me like a couple of hours to create a software that I needed for my work, and I was thinking like before this, like even 5 years ago, I would need like team of 5 or 10 engineers, and it would take like around half year to create something that I was able to create with AI in a couple of hours without technical ability of coding. And it's like changing everything.
Well, one way to look at it is you go, well, maybe there's all these programmers that are no longer doing that anymore and we're taking their jobs.
No, it's not that way.
But the other way I think to think about it is how many of those softwares were never written? Because you didn't have enough engineers and funding and time. So we're going to unlock the possibility of creating millions of softwares, millions of programs that otherwise would not have existed, where people who are experts in their field, maybe you're a scientist who's an expert on materials, or you're an expert in biotech, you're an expert in nuclear physics. It might be useful for you to have a tool, some software that would be perfect for your particular situation. But because you can't afford a team of engineers who also understand your expertise, and you can't afford the time, you just don't do it.
Absolutely.
And so this is what is, we're right there on the edge. You're feeling it with Replit. There's also Cursor and all these other ones. There's so many great ones that are coming out right now. We're right on the cusp where just a few more clicks of this, and even my own mother is going to be an expert software engineer. Because all she has to do is tell it what she wants, just like a manager. I mean, essentially everyone's going to become like me. I have hundreds of engineers that work for me. I used to write code, but I no longer can. I can't afford to write code because I have to spend my time ensuring that all of the engineers I have are doing their job right. But essentially, everyone is going to become a leader. They're going to have the equivalent of a very large company, thousands of employees working for them, building what they want. They're going to manage them. But except these employees are going to be all artificial.
I think it was Paul Graham couple of months ago when this vibe coding became a thing. He wrote on Twitter that the hottest programming language right now in the world is English. And it was such a nice way to put it. And I compare it with media. 20, 30 years ago, before YouTube, you had to have a big career in television or somewhere to be able to create something like this. Now you have a microphone, you have a camera, and you can create a content and distribute it to millions of people.
That's a great analogy because
studios are
it's
still
all
here.
about democratization, right? So YouTube and social media and the internet essentially democratized distribution.
It created its
media.
problems, but it's still...
Yeah, it did. But it democratized distribution. We also, computing and computers also democratize the creation. In order to create a high quality, high production value video or audio 30 years ago, you needed to have expensive equipment in a recording studio with special engineers and all of that. And we made it so anyone with a laptop can now compose music and produce music and put it and distribute it on Spotify, on YouTube, anywhere they like. We did the same for video. Anybody with a cell phone can now produce high quality.
Also generate video. We can talk about Gemini and others are now generating videos.
What's interesting is not everyone is equally popular. Those that have figured out how to create engaging content that are actually doing something of interest to humans get the views, get the scale. And it's generally not the ones that the big companies, the big media entrenched companies choose. it's whoever the people choose end up becoming large.
Yeah.
And so AI is going to supercharge that same trend, that curve that we're on. We're just going to accelerate it more.
Great. What you are doing is like amazing, and I'm sure it will create a lot of value, a lot of expertise in Armenia. So like, thank you for that, and I'm sure it will be extremely how to say it, like
Important.
not important, it will have amazing effect in Armenia, I think, because
Yeah.
what you explained and told, I'm sure it will have a very, very big effect in the Armenian economy and how we create new businesses. And in the end of the podcast, we have like a question that we ask everyone. What inspires you? Let's start with you, Oleg. What inspires you? What makes you to wake up every morning and do whatever you do?
I think the first thing that inspires me is my family, my kids, that makes me wake up and think to do more, because I had many options to leave Armenia when I was young, to find a job outside of Armenia, and I decided to stay here. And we formed the company when we were very early days with my brother, 16-year-old. So we decided to do whatever we are doing in business field, to start from Armenia and to contribute here. So the first thing I will say is my kids, to make sure whatever we are doing is also contributing to their future. By saying my kids also, it implies to all other kids living in Armenia. I will answer that way.
You know, I was born in the 1970s, 1975 in Los Angeles. I'm a child of Armenian immigrants. My parents were born in Lebanon, in Beirut. And my grandparents and great-grandparents from Western Armenia, which is today Turkey. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, I knew I was Armenian from the start. It's my first language, and that's what I spoke to with my parents. I didn't learn English until I went to kindergarten. I knew that I'm an Armenian, but not in Armenia. And the idea of an Armenia existing seemed impossible. We had not had our own country that we ruled for over 6 centuries. And we just had dreams of one, the dreams of the idea of it happening. And then it happened. In 1991, Armenia declared independence from the Soviet Union, and something clicked in my head. I'm like, wow, this thing that seemed impossible, that wouldn't happen, it's kind of happened. There's the nascent baby of a country. And for me, being a diaspora in Armenian, an Armenian outside, even if for us diasporans, we don't plan on coming back to Armenia to live here, I felt that the existence of an Armenia is actually critical to the existence of the rest of us Armenians outside. Because I'd look at the other immigrants and children of immigrants around me in the US, Italian Americans, Irish Americans, Chinese Americans. None of them had to worry about having the burden of keeping their culture alive. The fact that their country of origin still exists was a stable foundation for them, and I believe that we need that. So what I get up in the morning thinking about, in regards to what we're talking about here every day, is what can I do to ensure that Armenia continues to exist, that it's strong, it's prosperous, because that will help not just the Armenians that are here, but all Armenians everywhere in the world for till the end of time. That this has to actually exist. So all my focus is on what I can do to ensure that that continues to happen here in Armenia, and support the citizens of Armenia, in the country of Armenia with its borders, make sure that it's prosperous.